let's see what we can do. Here's an old, you can tell it's old because the ROR instruction 4 years ago had a different name, but Ross asked me to change it, so I did. Okay. Why don't you guys spend a couple of minutes assembling this, if you've got a piece of paper handy, and you could possibly even, let me see how far up I can shove it. If I zoom out slightly, you can also see the input. So I'll pick it up in a couple of minutes. This is a serious bank 3 marks question, right? If you haven't got 3 in this topic already, then this is a real good candidate to just learn one simple method and make sure you do get at least 3 marks. So let's get there. So feel free to do this on any piece of paper you have handy, and I know you have at least one piece of paper handy. Actually, is anybody without a 1-minute paper? And is there a pile of spare 1-minute papers that I could redeploy? Okay, shall we give it a go? Remember, the name of the game here is 1 lump or 2. We figure out what these label declarations refer to, which locations they refer to, by just making a running total of the sizes of the instructions. And each instruction is either of size 2 if it has an operand, or size 1 if it does not have an operand, and a piece of data like 0 has size 1 as well, so that should tell us how things fit into memory. Okay, so give us a hand here. 1 lump or 2? Yeah. Okay, what's next? What should I write here? Yeah. 6, this is a 2 lump. Right, what's next? 7, 8.
So wait, is JZE1 merchant disrupt as 1, or is JZE in itself 2?
JZE counts as 1 and disrupt counts as 1. It will take 1 memory location to store the address that corresponds to the label disrupt. Good question. Okay, so next is 9, and then 9 plus 2, yeah, is B. and then C, and then D, and then F, and then 0. So we can see when we go off the end and land up at exactly 0 that the program is going to fill the whole of memory, right? If we get anything more than, if we discover we've gone all the way around and then some, then the program's too big and it won't fit. And that happens to me every time I try and set a question. I have to figure out how to make it small enough to fit in the tiny machine. Okay, and now we assemble it by translating 3 different sorts of thing in 3 different sorts of way. We translate the operators according to the table in the tiny guide. We translate the labels that are used as operands by seeing where they refer to, where their labeled declarations refer to in memory, and we translate the data exactly as themselves. So we've got LDL, load loop index, that turns into E, and then we've got the label 0, which does not translate as the number 0, it translates as the address C, because that is the address that is labeled 0. I chose the name 0 because what is stored in that address is the number 0, and that will be very useful to us. So we start EC, and that, as you can see, is our first instruction, and it fills in locations 0 and 1. So our next instruction, SCF, which is also encoded as C, fits in exactly the place where we said it would, in location number 2. So good thing to check, as you fill in the assembled program, make sure each instruction is going where you said it was going, right? These numbers tell you where in memory those operators should be. And if that's not where you're putting them, something's gone amiss, so that's a good cue to fix it, right? Don't throw marks away. It's very easy to make an off by 1 error when you're doing your adding up, but when you actually start filling in the lumps of memory, you'll see that you've made that mistake and you can go back and fix it. So that's a good check to do to make sure you collect all of those marks. Okay, carrying on, decrement loop index, that's D. Jump if 0 to disrupt. So jump if 0 is 2, and we can see that disrupt is D. Oh, pleasingly mnemonic. Get is not merely at location 6, it is opcode 6. And rotate right is 9. Put is 7. Jump if not 0 to loop. Well, jump if not 0 is 3, and loop we can see is also 3. Okay, halt is 0. The value stored in location C is 0. And then at location D we have LDA, which is 4, and the label 0, which is C. And finally here we have a put, which is 7. So we predicted that the program would fill the whole of memory, and it does. Okay, so that hopefully is 3 easy marks just by carrying out the correct procedure for finding out what the labels mean and then assembling the whole of the program. For the other 2 marks, however, we have to figure out what the program does, and that is sometimes a harder challenge. We're told here, Pamela supplies the input 18C631, giving a bit pattern of 3 zeros, then 2 ones repeating. So you can see 1 is 0001, 8 is 1000, C is 1, 1, 0, 0. So all the way along, we've got 3 zeros, 2 ones, 3 zeros, 2 ones, 3 zeros, 2 ones, all the way in. So that's the repeating pattern. And we're asked what output is generated before the machine starves. Okay, so let's do the usual thing of figuring out what loops we've got going in the program and what controls them. So we've got a conditional jump here, jump if not 0 to loop. So that would go to there if it jumped. And we've got a jump if 0 to disrupt, which is there. And we've also got a loop from the end of memory back to the start. Goodness me, how loopy. What have we got going on? Okay, so let's take this jump if 0 to disrupt. What's controlling the 0 flag for that operation? If which instruction is going to be responsible for whether that conditional jump jumps or not? Any suggestions? Decrement loop index. You work your way backwards from the conditional jump to see the earliest, the closest operation beforehand that would set or clear the 0 flag. And in that case, that's decrement loop index. Okay? So that's to say there's a countdown, and if that decrement loop index makes the countdown reach 0, then this jump will happen. Otherwise, we'll carry on into the main body of the loop. So what's happening here is we've got a loop like this. All right. How does the loop index get initialized? What does that very first instruction in the program do?
Load them to 0.
Yeah, it sets the loop index to 0, which of course it might well have been already, but just to make sure, we initialize the loop index with 0. What happens when we decrement the loop index and it's already 0? Do you know? There is a video about this, so it might be worth looking at that.
Does it roll out to F?
It does. So that's to say, this does not fire first time around because that decrement loop index takes a loop index that we know is 0 and rolls it round to F. So it's actually going to take a full 16 of these decrements for it to get back to 0. So there's so we can think, well, that disrupt is going to take a while to happen. You can see in each cycle of the loop, labeled loop, we decrement the loop index just once. We also get one input each time around the loop. So you can see that there are only 6 inputs. So as far as part C of the question is concerned, you can basically forget all about this disrupt nonsense. It's not going to happen. We'll come back to that later. Now, what does happen inside this loop? So each time around this loop that begins at the loop location, we do this decrement loop index and see if it reaches 0. And if it doesn't, we get an input and we rotate it to the right. We do rotate right. What does that do? What does rotate right do? Yeah. It moves every bit in the accumulator one place to the right. And it fills in the leftmost bit from the carry flag, and it pushes out the old rightmost bit into the carry flag. So it shuffles everything along by 1 bit position, using the carry flag as the source for the new leftmost and the destination for the old rightmost. Okay, and you notice that also at the beginning of the setup, we set the carry flag. Okay, so that is going to mean the carry flag starts off as 1. So the first time we do a rotate right, the bit that will come in to the leftmost position will be a 1. Okay, so it's get input, shift it 1 place to the right, send that to the output, over and over again. So hopefully that means we can figure out what's going on. As it happens, I have a genuine tiny machine here with this input waiting in the input queue. So let's see what happens when we run the program. Well, first time around the loop, in comes a 1, and that 1 gets shifted 1 place to the right. So you can see it's 0, 0, 0, 1. So the 1 at the right hand end is going to end up in the carry flag, and the 1 that's already in the carry flag will arrive at the left hand end of those 3 zeros. So what will come out when the 1 goes in is an 8. Okay, and then next coming in is an 8, and when it gets shifted to the right, all of those bits move 1 place to the right, and the 1 that was in the carry flag comes in at the left hand side, which means what comes out is C. And then a 0 ends up in the carry flag. Okay, and then when we put in a C and shift its bits 1 place to the right with a 0 coming in from the carry flag, what comes out is 6, and a 0 in the carry flag. When we shove the bits from 6 1 place to the right with a 0 coming in from the carry flag, out comes 3. When we shove in when the 3 comes in and we shift it to the right with a 0 coming in from the carry flag, out comes 1, and there'll be now a 1 in the carry flag from the rightmost bit of that 3. And then finally, when the 1 comes in at the end, it'll get shifted right with the 1 coming in from the carry flag, and we'll get an 8, and once more there'll be a 1 in the carry flag. So what's going on? We end up with 8, C, 6, 3, 1, 8. And the whole bit pattern moves 1 place to the right. So what's happening is that we're taking a bit pattern that is quite long, and we are moving it 1 place to the right 4 bits at a time, using the carry flag to remember in between each time which bit just fell off the last 4 and needs to be shoved into the next 4. So what we've got is effectively a scrolling message of bits that's 3 zeros, 2 1s, 3 zeros, 2 1s, and so on. So if you look at this, we've got how many bits are in the message? Well, we've got 4, so we've got 6 hexadecimal digits, which contributes 24 bits, plus the 1 in the carry flag from the start. So we've got this repeating pattern of 3 zeros, 2 ones, 3 zeros, 2 ones, all the way along. Now look, how does this loop stop?
If we read that as 0, or if the roar gives us a 0.
Yes, so the thing which is controlling this conditional jump thing that controls this conditional jump, it's not the put instruction. The put instruction never affects the flags. It's the rotate right. Okay? So when does rotate right set the 0 flag? That's what would get us out of this loop.
If the accumulator's 1 and the carry flag 0?
If the yeah, right, if beforehand, because we're going to get, so the 4 bits that end up in the accumulator come from the leftmost 3 bits that were in the accumulator and the carry flag. All of those would have to be 0 for that rotate right to give us a 0. That's to say, the accumulator would have to start off 0 or 1, and there would have to be a 0 in the carry flag. That's to say, we would need to have 4 zeros in a row in our scrolling bit pattern for them to get rotated into position in the accumulator to make that stop. Now, do we have 4 zeros in a row in our bit pattern? Here's the bit pattern. Oh, I forgot to show you. Yeah, see? The program really is loaded. It's set with some errors of my own design. That's stupid that did. Yeah, so can you see 4 zeros are in a row in this bit pattern? So it's not going to happen. Right. Okay, now, last part of the question. To prevent starvation, Pamela rewires the tiny machine so that each output in turn joins the back of the input queue. That's why it's all joined up in a loop like this. So the message is going to keep going round and round and round instead of just getting stuck after the first 6 inputs. However, the bit pattern still looks like 3 zeros, 2 ones, 3 zeros, 2 ones. And the thing only stops if it gets 4 zeros in a row into the accumulator. So, looking back at the program again, will it ever stop?
After 16 outputs?
After 16 times round the loop, we know this countdown will reach 0. So what happens at that point? We jump to disrupt, and we at that point load another copy of 0 into the accumulator and send it to the output. That will put 4 zeros in a row into the scrolling message. So it won't halt there and then, but those 4 zeros will eventually come back. You know, because they go into the output, they eventually come back round into the input queue, and that will eventually cause that rotate right to put 4 zeros in a row into the accumulator, which will make the program stop. So that was quite a wild one. A typical sort of question where it's not so hard to get the first, well, the first 3 marks are just a mechanical procedure that you learn to follow. The 4th mark requires a little bit of program comprehension, just knowing what rotate right does, pretty much. And then the last mark is pretty sophisticated thinking. And you shouldn't be amazed by that. Remember that although they are marked out of 5, those 5 marks can be interpreted, if you blow them up to a percentage, on the university marking scale. So remember that 3.5 is 70%, which is first class, right? If you're sitting there with 3.5 out of 5 in some topic, that means you have a first class score. If you're doing better than 3.5, you are in smart arse territory, and don't worry, I won't tell your mates. But you need to recalibrate the way you think about these things. It's not school anymore. 2 out of 5 is a pass. 3.5 out of 5 is really good. Okay? Don't beat yourself up. So yeah, that one was quite to get the last, to go from way over first class to absolutely kiss my arse perfect. You had to be really quite clever in that question. But that's the way. Usually they're a bit easier than that. That's probably the hardest tiny assembly question I've ever set. Okay, let's do something else. What we got? What time is it?